And I'll be like, no, press.
Remember, if you can do Omni Man, I want him to beat Omni Man for
I
next
still
Halloween.
haven't seen Invincible, but I bet you I could probably crush it.
Oh yeah.
Way too confident. Much like Napoleon.
Yeah. So, our first review of the day is going to be for the movie Napoleon. Napoleon, directed by Ridley Scott here. And it is this historical epic film here about the life of Napoleon Bonaparte. A lot of people say, like, people who've seen this who are big history buffs, big Napoleon fans, are saying that this is widely historically inaccurate. A lot of things
To which Ridley Scott says, fuck off.
That's another thing about interesting. Like, one of the more interesting things about this kind of press tour that Ridley Scott's been going on. Who Ridley Scott, 85 years old, by the way, still making movies.
85 years old, has made 8 movies in the past 10 years.
Living.
Yeah.
Fucking insane.
And just made a movie last year. He did House of Gucci.
The year before, he did House of Gucci and The Last Duel. And The Last Duel, I would argue, is the superior film and one of the best movies of the past decade. Yeah. Actually, no, it was 2 years ago. Holy shit.
Really? House of Gucci was 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2021.
Oh, okay. So 2 years ago, he did House of Gucci, which I wasn't a really big fan of. House of Gucci actually was one of my worst movies of that year when it came out.
I think it was a bit of a mess.
And Last Duel, I do think that is a superior film. I did like that much better. But with this, like I said, Ridley Scott's been on a press tour, and just no fucks have been given by him apparently in this.
Never.
He has got some really good quotes here. One like, he said the French don't even like themselves in an interview there. But I mean, that's just, let me
fucking pop off, King. Like shit.
It's a Napoleon director. The French don't even like themselves. And much of the criticism that he's faced from a lot of the people who are French who've talked about it, it's like, well, what do you think about the historical inaccuracies in this? Which he said, like, that's not my job. That's the writer's job. I don't really care about much of that.
He also is like said, "Were you there?"
Shit, because I damn there was.
Somebody said there was like the quote of like, "Did he actually shoot at the pyramids?" He said, "Sure, why not?"
Sure.
Dude will clap back.
Ridley Scott also said things like "get a life." Scott said, "I tend to be visually above all things before the written word." Scott is prior from form here, as he previously told a journalist to go fuck yourself after he said in 2021's Last Duel was more realistic than his past films like Robin Hood and Kingdom of Heaven. He said, "Sir, fuck you." Scott said in response, "Fuck you. Thank you very much. Fuck you. Go fuck yourself, sir. Go on."
Okay.
Yeah. So he
had a really great zinger in there that kind of applies to this movie where they asked like, okay, so you did accents for House of Gucci, but you didn't do accents for Last Duel. Like, what's the reasoning behind that? And he said, well, it'd be fucking stupid. How about you shut the fuck up and then you'll enjoy the movie.
Yeah.
Wait, he really popping off on people like this?
Yeah, dude, he pops off. It's insane.
So I mean, when you saw House of Gucci and you saw the accents that they did, it's like, well, maybe that's for the best, because nobody in this movie has any hint of a French accent whatsoever. Joaquin Phoenix is just talking in his normal accent. He's not even trying to do a French accent. Nobody speaks French in this. There's no oui, there's no Paris, there's none of that in it. So
yeah, you get a couple British accents, but mostly you get the American accent, and everybody's just doing their own accent, which didn't bother me at all. Never thought about it once.
Vanessa Kirby, who's in this, who's the wife of Napoleon Bonaparte. I think she just even talks in her regular accent, her British.
Yep, definitely.
Who's the wife here. And it seemed like the main focus of this movie with Ridley Scott seemed to be the battle sequences, seemed to be the action sequences here, which I think are the best things about this movie.
I push back just a tiny bit on that. I think he's equally as invested in the psychosexual relationship, the goofy ass psychosexual relationship between Lady Josephine and Napoleon.
Yeah, Lady Josephine is played by Vanessa Kirby there. I think that is fun. I mean, some of the stuff they do have a good kind of back and forth of them kind of fucking each other over, like both literally and figuratively. You know what I mean? Where she's having affairs with other people, and then he's off when he's off at war and fighting all these different battles. and you'll see a lot of iconic battles from Napoleon's career here, because this movie takes place over the course of 20 years. Even though when you look at the actors, they don't look any differently as they when you first saw them in the first frame of the movie. This looks like no aging has occurred, but whatever, I guess. But yeah, you see a lot, of course, like the Waterloo battle, where it was, also there's the battle where he was going up against the campaign on Egypt. So a lot of famous battles and things like that you'll see in this movie with Napoleon here. But yeah, you also have this, like you said, this weird kind of sexual relationship between Vanessa Kirby and Joaquin Phoenix are there, where he meets this woman and becomes just infatuated with her. They get married. Then comes a problem where he's trying to have her make a kid, bear him a son, so he can have an heir to all of his fortune. And you see the rise of Napoleon in this movie. You see him, you know what I mean? Oh shit, that's fucking loud. Become one of the most important people in all of France, and then eventually the fall of Napoleon, if you know history, where that kind of comes in. Nathan, what were some of your thoughts about Napoleon?
All in all, I mean, I went into this knowing full well that there is going to be a 4-hour, 10-minute cut of this movie. So it is not a full film, in my opinion. But it overall worked for me very well. I'm very off and on with Joaquin Phoenix. Sometimes I think he's insanely hammy. Weirdly, found this to be a very subtle performance by him, despite being insanely funny. Thought it was funny in ways I was not expecting. I thought the battle sequences, like you said, were fucking incredible, especially the one in Austerlitz with the cannonballs going through the ice. That scene that you're seeing, that clip in particular with the Tutankhamun, or not Tutankhamun, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's a fictionalized scene, but him
Scene right
conquering
here that
Egypt, and yeah. Well, that scene is the showstopper. That's where I'm like, is this the best movie I've seen all year? And the movie doesn't fully live up to that, but I also found myself equally, if not more, invested in the weird psychosexual aspects of it, because ultimately this film is a movie about military strategy being made by a very impotent and insecure man, while his wife is going around and fucking around pretty much everybody else. And it's hard not to draw Trump parallels. Everybody always has,
Mhm.
But I found it to be quite a fascinating film that ultimately felt both too long and too short. But it was it ultimately, it's not going to make my top 10 this year, but I do think it's one of the most interesting films this year.
Mm. Yeah, I think, with this movie, thinking about it, it's like about this figure, Napoleon. I'm not looking for movies based on historical figures to be, very accurate. I get this for entertainment purposes. I get that you're doing it, you got to cut and dice this up to make it, more of entertainment, not trying to be a documentary here. So I'm not too concerned about that. I do think that it's like, leaving this movie, it's just like I don't really know that much more about Napoleon probably than I already did kind of coming into it. It's the same how I think I felt about like Priscilla. Like that was one of my main issues with that movie. It's like, who was Priscilla? As a person, as a human being. I didn't really think I got any of that from the movie. And then same thing here with Napoleon. It's like, okay, there's that relationship he had, with Vanessa Kirby's character, Josephine, and again, given how this movie is widely historically accurate, and, how much of that is true, how much of it is not. It's fun though. It's fun to watch, and I do like their back and forth, and that is entertaining. I do think the main things about here, like I said, is the battle sequences. I think that is the main draw to this movie. If you see it on the big screen, if you see it on IMAX, I don't
Oh
think you'll
yeah.
be disappointed in seeing that, because I think it has some of the most impressive action scenes I've seen all this year. And it's a violent movie too. It's really bloody. The cannons, what they do, they eviscerate people.
Yeah, I will never shit talk a cannon for the rest of my days.
You know what I mean?
Like, Jesus fucking Christ. The first time you see it hit that horse, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is the movie that we're in for.
With these movies like this, I like to do a. Sorry, Nathan. I like to do a black
Yeah.
man count. Is there a black man count in this film? Is there any black man?
There is actually a couple black people in this movie. I was kind of shocked by it.
I think
Okay,
there
we
was
got
some,
it.
in the
Yeah, I
background.
mean, not a huge cast of black people in this movie, but
Yeah.
uh Yeah.
It was looking real Fifth Element. Okay, I got
Yeah. That's a good comparison.
you.
But yeah, I mean, if you were to see it on the big screen there, a lot of the action scene, I don't think you'd be disappointed in that. This is kind of a longer movie. It's 2 hours and 38 minutes. The 4 hour cut, as Nathan was mentioning beforehand, is going to be available on Apple Plus if you have that. So you can see and watch that there if you're interested. The longer version of this movie. I don't think I would be that interested to see it.
I
I mean,
will say, if you have not seen his cut of Kingdom of Heaven, that is 4 hours long. I mean, I know everybody kind of shit talks Kingdom of Heaven. That director's cut is the epitome of like a better movie for it. And it's one where the theatrical cut feels longer because it's so truncated. But there are entire stretches of this movie where you're like, what happened to Napoleon's brother?
yeah,
I guess he just conquered Italy. All right, sure.
yeah. Like there's some character like Vanessa Kirby's character Josephine. She had 2 kids, and those 2 kids you only see once, and they're gone for the rest of the fucking movie. Like,
Yeah,
what happened?
she apparently is the main like focus of the director's cut because it was supposed to be more of a two-hander where the whole idea is that he's fighting all these wars, but his main focus is this war at home where he thinks the more he can conquer things, the more he can like, be able to sexually satisfy and emotionally satisfy Lady Josephine, who has such a modern take on sexuality for a historical epic.
Is she giving neck on now?
Nah, she not.
Well,
You don't.
shit, she ain't doing much of shit. Shit, he should be going out there doing all that for her. He basically sounds like he just Thanos without getting neck.
Something mind you, I'm not like a big historian or anything.
Getting neck person? Oh,
I'm a big neck person. No. I'm not a big like history buff, but I do find history in and of itself to be fascinating. I had no idea about Moscow burning itself to the ground just so Napoleon couldn't conquer it.
that's ridiculous. That's called a crash out.
But that was one of those things where like you just look at Joaquin's salty ass face and he's like, they got me. Like,
I would love to. Is anybody as really what 4 hour movies do you like? And I know you're doing this as a cash grab. I seen like when they have like those 4 hour cuts and shit like that, they do it like you said, they doing that shit for the buffs, man. They ain't doing that unless you try and get some neck in between. But
I mean,
we're gonna get some neck in between and finish a 4 hour.
You trying to see Vanessa Kirby naked in this? Is that what you're trying to
Nah, that ain't enough for me. You might just jerk off then. Once you jerk off, you done.
I mean, there's at least 22 years to cover in this shit. Like, it's a wild movie. It cannot underplay how wild some of the shit that happens in this movie is. I'm interested to see this extended cut because I do think it will be better.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I mean, it's up to you on whether or not you're interested. I mean, if you're not interested, just don't fucking go see the movie. I feel like there's so much discourse of like, who wants to go see Killers of the Flower Moon? That movie's 3 hours and 30 minutes long. It's like, all right, then don't fucking go see it.
But you can't, and then it's like you can't even say that when people get wet off the motherfuckers they see. Like you see fucking De Niro and fucking who else is in that damn
Leo.
movie? Leo. Yeah, you're getting wet automatically.
But this is the scene that Nathan was talking about where they burn Moscow here. It's gorgeous looking too. I mean, the cinematography also looks really great here too.
His movies never look bad, and they always fall under budget, ahead of schedule. I mean, dude's a fucking king. I mean, the thing is, his movies are either gonna be like a hit or an interesting miss. Mm-hmm. Rarely you get like in between. And I always find that fascinating. I just did a full watch of every movie Ridley Scott's ever done, which was a lot. But like The Martian, you're just like, holy shit, he's got his fastball, Then you get something like, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Then you get something like Exodus, Gods and Kings, and you're like, who the fuck wanted this?
I remember that.
One of those movies that, like, if you ever want to have proof that Ridley Scott doesn't believe in God, watch that.
Or watch House of Gucci.
Or watch what? Well, the thing with like late era Scott is that he just hates rich people. He hates humanity, quite a bit, but he hates rich people the most. Like, you watch Alien Covenant or Prometheus, you got the dumbest humans making the dumbest decisions, all of them like pretty decently wealthy, all dying in horrific ways. And like in House of Gucci, he can't even act like he's interested in the amount of wealth that they have. Like, the whole movie's supposed to be this fairy tale of like, wealth is poison, and he's immediately like, wealth is poison. Like, there you go. There's nothing great about this.
He like a designer director, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, he's like a designer director. Like, he can live and eat off of his art. And he, at least when you see a Ridley Scott movie, you'll feel like, I haven't watched many Ridley Scott movies, but I mean, a few that I have seen or whatever, you know, this is $10,000 alpaca. You block that shit.
Yeah, I was about to say, it is crazy that he like is able to just make like Napoleon and fucking American Gangster and then Thelma and Louise. Like, he can bounce around at any genre.
He's got a great resume, and he's got a movie coming out next year. He's got Gladiator 2 coming out next year.
And you got Denzel reuniting with him on that fucker.
Really?
Yeah, Denzel is gonna play one of the Gladiator trainers.
Oh my God! I told Ridley I would come back. I told him I would come back if the script is right. I said, Ridley, if the script is right, I'll come back.
There was this interview with him and Mark Maron, and they're talking about American Gangster. And the interview is hilarious because Ridley Scott is just recommending his own movies as like the best. He's like, hey, you ever see a Matchstick Men? Really good dark comedy. Give it a watch. And they're like, oh yeah, you directed that. He's like, yeah, it's fucking great. But
American Gangster, though, it was super different. I wonder, and for all his movies, just touching on Ridley Scott, period. I wonder how much of his movies do he really touch? Like, because like you just said, he said in the interview, like, oh, that's the script writer's job and shit like that. So I feel like Ridley Scott, like you said, he's one of those like designer type of directors, because you put his name on there, it's automatically going to bring a couple of dollars. You know what I'm saying? And even like when American Gangster came out, I think that was one of his movies. I feel like that was like super fucking like marketed and shit, because it had an album and a fucking movie to go with it.
The crazy thing about American Gangster because I did the whole rewatch, and I will say this for the pod. I'm currently in the process of putting together a Ridley Scott and Tony Scott podcast right now. So I've been doing like the research on, like, you know, because all of his press tour shit is hilarious. But he was talking about American Gangster, and they had like a bunch of like experts who were like 35 talking about this is what Harlem looked like in the 70s. And Ridley Scott basically told them all to fuck off because apparently he lived in Harlem in the 70s.
And that's why a lot of I can see that too. Like, it's the same shit.
Yeah.
But I just meant to say it just because he talked. There's like a moment in the Mark Maron interview where they asked about Denzel Washington, and Ridley Scott said, "Fucking greatest director or greatest actor who's ever lived." And Mark Maron's like, "Oh, what makes you say that?" And he's just like, "Fucking everything." Next question.
So Nathan, what would you give Napoleon? Final thoughts, rating.
Wait, one more before y'all give it quick, we'll add both of y'all. Do you feel like this film is mostly looks good because of money, or do you feel like Ridley actually has like a talent or a flair, does it shine through?
It's definitely the second part, because this movie didn't cost that much. This movie's like a $100 million movie, and you look at the Flash, and that shit's
$200 million.
$200
million budget movie.
Oh, for Napoleon or the Flash?
Napoleon had a budget of $130 million to $200 million.
Yeah, wild. But there's some sequences in this movie where I just straight up have no idea how they did it, especially the cannonballs going through the ice and the horses falling through, and like the ice is slitting the horses' necks and shit, dude. You're just like, did they like? I mean, I know they're CGI, but like, did they kill horses?
No.
Like, how'd they get the cameras under the ice? Like, I had so many questions, and I will never be able to like really get the answers. Another, I will just say, I know we got to get to other stuff, but I posted a clip, and everybody should check this out. There's a director's roundtable where it's like all the directors are like the 2015 Best Picture nominees. You got Quentin Tarantino in there and Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu talking about The Revenant and Hateful Eight and like filming in like snowy conditions. Tarantino is just like, yeah. So we waited like 3 months for the right type of snow to come back for when Sam Jackson is sucking on or getting his dick sucked out in the snow and like all of that. And then they ask Ridley Scott, they're like, so what was your biggest difficulty working on The Martian? He just says, nothing. It was fucking straightforward. And the look on Tarantino's face is the funniest shit you'll ever see.
It's on your Facebook there?
Oh. Yeah. It's on my Facebook, on my Twitter. I saw it and I immediately was like, okay, this guy, I can't get enough of him in press tours. He just gives no fucks.
So what would be your rating there?
My rating would be a very enthusiastic 7 out of 10. I think if you really want to see, like, if you're a Joaquin Phoenix fan, definitely go see this. If you're a Ridley Scott fan, definitely go see this. If you're just a fan of seeing like insane spectacle on a big screen, go see this on a big screen. I can't see any way that the director's cut is not better though. So should you want to wait for Apple TV Plus, definitely do that. Like it'll probably be worth your amount of time to do that as opposed to watching the abridged version and being like, yeah, it was all right, you know. But I ultimately I found that it still worked despite being so abridged at times.
So 7 out of 10 on our scale, that'd be probably like a tune in, basically strong tune in, I think. Yeah. So for me, I'd give it kind of a lowish tune in to like a stream it kind of territory, more like a stream it, high stream it. Like I said, very impressive with the battle sequences here. I enjoyed that. Joaquin Phoenix and his performance and Vanessa Kirby, it's a good back and forth between those two that also really make the movie when you're not watching the battle sequences. But I think there was more time and attention and care into the battle sequences and the action sequences than it was to who was really much of Napoleon as maybe a character and as a person. Here, I know that a lot of people are freaking out about the historical inaccuracies there. I don't really care about that too much. So that's not really one of my main concerns about when I watch a movie like this. But yeah, I mean, you do have that and gorgeous looking movie, really good looking, really shot very well. But yeah, so for me, I would kind of just give it kind of more of like a high streaming, maybe around that territory. Yeah, and that was Napoleon. And Nathan had a good clip of the movie there that is really, really well done that he showed right here.
Yeah.
Wait, because you have both.
You gotta go back. We were definitely.
You think you're so
like right here.
Yeah. Just talking to the British.
So great because you have both.
You ain't no damn British.
Man.
So tune in from Nathan and a high stream it for me for Napoleon.